Hello everyone, it's Niall McGorn here from Lely Centre Mullingar, and you're very welcome to the first virtual open day that we've had the pleasure of hosting. So today we're on the farm of Andrew Browne and family, and Andrew is farming between Rossgray and Borrisokane in County Tipperary. So I first would have met Andrew back in March of last year. He gave me a call. He said, I'm considering going into milk, I'm considering my options, will you come and see me? So I arranged an appointment, and the purpose of that first meeting was, one, I wanted to see was the farm suitable for a robotic milking system, and then to see was Andrew suitable and would it suit what he was looking to do long term. So we walked the grazing block, we looked at his yard, I got a good feeling for the opportunities. So the next action after that was I picked out a few farms I thought Andrew and Seamus would get some experience from, people who were in a similar situation a few years ago, similar sort of aspirations. So I think there was 3 farms I recommended he went to visit, which he did. Liked what he seen, impressed what he heard. We had another meeting after that, and we got our yard planner, Simon Moore, involved at that stage, because we wanted to look at cow flow, we wanted to make sure there was a good automatic drafting system. Labour efficiency was also very important for the Browne family. So Simon, over a number of meetings, developed a plan with Andrew and Seamus, and you'll see that behind us. We also got our grazing advisor out on farm to look at the grazing block. So today, as part of this virtual open day, we're going to look at all aspects of robotic milking. We're going to have our project coordinator, Seamus McDonough. He's going to walk through the design that was decided on this farm and the different aspects and what he brought to the party. Philip Kennedy is going to bring us out to the grazing block, and he's going to talk through the logic behind the design and the plan and how well that is working. And over the course of the next half an hour, we're going to get plenty of questions answered and plenty of feedback from Andrew and Seamus. So hope you enjoy the next half an hour.
Welcome, Seamus McDonough is my name, and I'm the project coordinator with the Lely Centre Mullingar. I've been working in the role the last 6 years, and I'm just here on farm with Andrew Browne on a project that we were involved with last spring. So I became involved with the project after the deal was done, and our yard planner Simon Moore had visited farm with Andrew, and they had agreed on the location of the robots and in general the plan. From that point, myself and Simon visited farm. We agreed on the detail and the drawings. Andrew was happy with that, and then I went off and produced a complete set of construction drawings. My role for the project is to take it from that point with construction drawings all the way through to the first cow milked. So I lead up the project management team, and within that is dealing with Andrew, dealing with his builders, his different trades, visiting farm, and always on the other side of the phone for Andrew with any questions or any reassurance through the building. We also organise the fitting team to come to farm, and we'll organise the commissioning team and the startup plan. So Andrew, when Simon was down with you, if you could just go through your existing facilities. So
Simon called here originally, and we had 62 cubicles in an existing shed, and our first idea was to bring the robot to here towards this side of the shed, just off the end of it, and we just trashed out a couple of different ideas about where best to position the robot and how to work off of there then for cow flow, and to give us best access then to the grazeway, and just to tie it all in to bring the grazing into it, along with how the cows were going to operate within the system from being inside the shed.
Yeah, so I see here this is a typical shed with agitation points at the end. So was that a reason for pushing the robot a little further out?
Yeah, it was one of the reasons, alright, to become compliant for the grant. We drew down a TAMS grant here for the robot, and that was one of the reasons to become compliant, to come back away from that tank.
So by pushing the robot a little further on allows him for future development in this area, and he can fit 30 cubicles into this area. Now, over to the other side of his feed barrier in the existing shed, there's room again for about another 40 cubicles. So with 60 and 40 inside and 30. That brings them to about 130 cubicles, where they're the numbers you'd like to be at with the second robot. So inside in the build here, we can see behind us, the shed area, it's 100 square meters. So it's quite a compact build. Was there reasons for that?
Yeah, we kind of looked at all our options, and I got a good draftsman here from day one, just to get good advice and on the different options that we have. And we found a planning exemption rule,
Sure, yeah.
which helped us out massively then in terms of time, and it also was a cost effect. So one of the terms of the exemption rule was if we kept the structure of the shed under 100 metres squared, we'd fall under that exemption. And keep 10 metres from the public road as well was also another rule. So we managed to do that and build in the office, the robot room and the dairy all in underneath the 100 metres squared.
Like, our main road runs down along the outside of the shed here. So it's very easy access for your milk tank to come in to a clean side of the yard. As well at the back, the meal.
The meal bin,
Yeah.
Because after the last couple of months now, from the advice I was getting from other dairy farmers, just to make access for that milk lorry to come in and take the milk, it is another considering factor to take in mind. And my experience for the last couple of months, having that free space for the milkman to give him access to come in and to come out safely without being in his way was a huge bonus. Yeah, definitely. And for the meal lorry to come in and access too.
So your milk tank, what size milk tank did you decide to go with then, Andrew?
We went with a 12,000 Mueller second hand. There's a guy in Mead who brings them back in from Germany. They come refurbished and reconditioned. And we went with that size of a tank just to leave room for expansion.
Yeah, because I think we drew the dairy in as 7 metres and we considered that in our build. So in the build behind us here, we have the dairy, then we have robot room number 1, we have robot room number 2 as well in a head-to-head layout. In front we have a 12'6" slat, isn't it, Andrew?
It is a 12'6" slat, yeah.
And the length of the tank then?
The length of the tank, we went 100 foot with the tank to give enough room for the grazeway and for the robot, and to allow enough room for the collecting yard, because during the grazing season and during the summer this area is shut off from the cubicle shed. The cows enter and exit from the grazeway and they're held here just to allow us enough room and space for the 61 cows for days like TB testing and for any other jobs, just to hold that number of cows.
Here, at the end of these passages, you've gates across, so they're just accessing the slat.
Access to the slat during the grazing period,
Yeah. And the tank, you said 100 foot long, so we have our agitation points at either end. Yeah, and access to them.
And access to them, and also it's a very easy access point for on the days that we're putting out slurry. We can access here off the road, and we're very lucky that a lot of the land is merging roads, so when we are spreading slurry, we have easy access to the tank and we have easy access to the field, and we're keeping off the roadways for with the tractor and with the slurry tanker.
In terms of then the services, we have water above, we also have power. Your experience on the power side of it?
My experience with the power side of it was very straightforward. We had to upgrade our power supply here to just give us room down the line for a second robot, for the shed and for whatever else, just to give us a bit of breathing space. Contacted DSB and it all moved very smoothly, I must say.
And I remember from the project you have treated the water up here, so what are you treating it for?
Yeah, before we installed the robot we tested the water here. The water is very high in lime here, and so we had to put in a treatment plant for that.
Yeah, so that protects your water heater in the dairy and also the water heater in the robot.
And also there was a touch of bacteria in the water as well from when we tested it. Just we want to produce, as the machine is washing with water, we want to keep the machine as clean as possible. So we introduced the bacteria treatment plant as well, and that'll kill any bacteria that might be lying in the water.
Yeah, sure. So getting back to my relationship with Andrew through the building. So after that first day, I produced a set of builder's drawings and went through them with Andrew. Then we visited farm and I met with his first contractor, which was the concrete man. So we also met with the shed man on farm here, and we went through what we were trying to achieve, and just that we could interpret the drawing and there would be no mistakes. After that, then you're talking, from our point of view, we're talking with the plumber on Andrew's behalf, we're talking with the electrician, and they're the main trades really. Your electrician, your plumber, your concrete man for the tank on the ground, your steel man for the shed, and obviously we're available to Andrew at all times across the phone. But at key stages of the project you'd be visiting. So you mentioned that you got started here in May, and I know that it was the last couple of days in November from memory that we fitted the machine here for you.
Yep. The robot was scheduled to be installed here in November. It arrived here on the day. Once we were ready for that, that was our goal, to be here and ready for that day. So,
and was power here at that point, or did
we had
commission? Or?
We had power. We had power on the day, but commission took place a couple of days afterwards, just for the fact that we weren't going to be starting here until spring of 2020.
And then in January, did you introduce them to a training program here? Or?
Yeah, I did. We introduced it gradually because they were heavily in calf. We took it easy on them. Just a couple of small things by leaving the robot open and just leaving the cow have access to the whole building itself, just to become familiar with it.
Yeah.
I would definitely highly recommend the training program that is on the robot. It definitely did take a lot of the hardship out of it when it came to the spring. There's loads of jobs in the spring that by training the cow to the robot before she actually calves will eliminate an awful lot of jobs, and it will make her life an awful lot easier when it does come to the spring.
Yeah. Are you happy with the way things turned out, or is there any bit of adjustment that you'd have again on it?
No, I'm very happy overall with the whole building side of things. If there was a thing that I would change, might maybe consider the height of the shed. We are a little bit open here to the elements.
Yeah.
It's probably something we're going to have to consider facing into this winter. We were very lucky here last winter because it was very mild. So just to come up with one or two areas to combat snow and frost, I suppose. Overall, being able to visit the farmer, going back to the time that I met Niall, he sent me to farms that were very relevant to the image that I had in my own head, and being able to go and see the way other guys had built and installed their robots before here gave me a great knowledge and a kind of a clear image of what I wanted to achieve. In the plans, expansion was always something that we didn't want to limit ourselves to. We might never go there, but at least we're after leaving ourselves the option to go down that line. We have an office space that you need for the Lely robot, to have your computer that ties in with the robotic system.
So in Robot Room 2, Andrew, we discussed it, and Andrew said that he'd like to use that as his office space. So what's in that is his computer and the air compressor. But should he kick on in the future, it's very easy to shift that. It's only an air cable to the compressor and then a Cat5 and a power cable to the computer. So Andrew, where do you expect that you'll locate that office? I see you have good size upstairs, and it's something we discussed before.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons why we left a bit of space for us up over the robot room and the office and the dairy. Just if we were to go down the line of the second robot, very easy to reposition the office space, and we'll just go over the position of the second robot.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Another option would be, and some farmers have done it, is that they have set just a simple porta-cabin outside the build away, and they're very easy come by, and they're very disposable in the future if you wanted to sell it on.
Yep, it's all about keeping it simple. The key drivers of the whole build here was to keep the whole thing simple, and also while keeping it simple, we want to accommodate for everything that we needed. By keeping it very basic, with the 3 rooms and with the tank in front, We just went with a simple lean-to shed over the 3 rooms, and having that tank in front of the robot and leading the whole way up to the Grazeway is definitely something that I would advise. The Grazeway is a high traffic area, and it does generate a lot of dirty water, and having that facility underneath the Grazeway is definitely a big bonus.
What you cannot see here is his separation area, but there is in fact a separation area behind us, behind the camera, inside in the existing shed area. So cows can access up through this lane. They can walk into the robot without mixing through the main herd. There's a corridor centre to centre which will divert them around. They can come back and return into the shed. So that'll be illustrated through the drawings.
I found that separation area very handy then when it came to breeding. Very simple and very easy to use, and also we installed a simple footbath at the walkway at the back of the robot, and just to give us another option that we use throughout the year, just to keep on top of it.
So this feed barrier here, Andrew, this is your barrier that you're using when you're separating cows out or when you're AIing at them periods.
Yeah, so when the cow exited the robot, the gate at the front closed off and directed her down the passageway between the office and the robot. She then came around from the back of the robot and came into this separation room here.
Yeah, which is the corridor between the dairy and robot 1 that allows her to return back.
Correct. So then when we had her here, we had the headlock and barriers, and it left it very easy then for insemination.
Mm-hmm. And your first milking, that cow when she calves, the access for her?
The access for her was, so we had a couple of cubicles marked off here at the end of this particular walkway, and when she calved down, then her access was solely on this corridor here. And when through the whole training process, just for the first 3-4 days, to get her in tune with the whole system and to get her coming to the robot herself without me having to go and bring her to the robot, we kept her here between the cubicle and the robot. And when she then got into her own routine and got comfortable enough with the whole setup, we let her rejoin the rest of the herd then, and they were operating on the other passageway here. For the first couple of days, until she got in tune and in routine of the robot would keep her rooted here to this section here, so she'd have feeding space here at the feeding barrier, and she'd have cubicles to lay on inside as well.
My name is Philip Kennedy. I'm part of the farm management support team with Lely Astronaut Mullingar. We're here on the farm of Andrew Browne for this virtual open day. As part of the farm management support team, our role really kicks off post-startup. So before startup, we would have had a look at the farm, setting up infrastructure, setting up paddock layout and water infrastructure. But I suppose the bulk of our work is done after install. So when the farm gets up and running, we help the farmers to adapt to the system, train them on the computer side of it and interpreting the data, and then getting used to the outside. So setting the farm up on a weekly basis for grass production to maximise the system and increase cow performance. We also run monthly discussion group meetings and have a very good group of farmers that constantly interact each other on a WhatsApp group for the likes of Andrew to ask questions and to seek whatever knowledge he might from people that are in 6, 7, 8, 9 years. So there's lots of farmers there with lots of knowledge. The key is linking those farmers up, whether it's locally or nationally, to make sure that the questions are answered. So the likes of Andrew and everyone else that would have gone in this year can get the most out of their system by asking those questions. Andrew, would you like to give us a brief run through of the stock numbers on the farm and how you went about sourcing stock and where they came from?
No bother, Philip. So we have 61 cows here in their first lactation. I think the average EBI would be somewhere between 160 170. British Friesian Holstein 70-30, and kind of it.
And are you happy with the performance of the herd for the year?
Yeah. To date, now I can't complain. As first years goes, definitely we're after kind of achieving our targets that we kind of had in mind before we started. So we're on course. On course.
So Andrew's herd are predicted to do somewhere over the 5,000 litre mark and just shy of 400 kilos of milk solids as well for the year. So it's super going for our first lactation herd and has left lots of scope for improvement for the years coming and as the heifers mature and grow into second and third lactation cows. So I suppose, Andrew, kind of just to go back a small bit and step back in relation to the actual grass platform here, how many acres are you farming here at the moment?
There's roughly about 100 acres here on the milking platform. We were very lucky, I suppose, in terms of the grazing platform. We had about 30 acres of reseeding to do in the last 2 years. In terms of roadways, we had one existing roadway running right down through our existing A and B platform now, and we had to do a new roadway then coming out here behind us and linking up here into C. So overall we were very lucky. Bit of fencing to do as well, but overall no, it was pretty easy. A lot of the drinkers and trucks were located, say, in the paddocks that we had existing. We moved a lot of the drinkers and the trucks then along the roadways, just to facilitate as the cows were moving and to encourage them back onto the roadways too, just to encourage movement throughout the system.
Okay, so I suppose as part of our job as Lely Farm Management Support in Mullingar, the first part of the process is to come out to map the farm, to see what's suitable and to try divide up the farm using the infrastructure that's in place already and expanding on from that. So we're lucky enough on this farm here, there was a level of roadways already in place and there was only minimal amount to go in. And the fields by nature were probably very square and were very easy to divide up in that way. So what we try to do is we divide up the farm into A, B and C. It's something you always hear a lot about with robotic milking. So I suppose just maybe to talk through even what's going on at the farm at the moment, what way are you running the farm and managing the grass at the moment here, Andrew?
Yeah, at the minute I suppose it's a challenge, like all dairy farms out there, with the weather we're after getting now in the past 2-3 weeks. Ground conditions are after deteriorating a lot. We're still getting out for one grazing a day. We're coming to the last couple of grazings now. We'll probably run into maybe 3-4 more days. It'll probably finish up our rotation. Okay,
and I suppose how does the system lend itself to on-off grazing? It's probably one thing you read a lot about this time of year, is trying to save ground conditions while trying to get your graze outs and get in and get your final grazing. How do you work the system in relation to having your cows indoors but yet being able to get them outside? Can you just explain through how you go about doing that?
Yeah, it was a whole new experience here, I suppose, from A, B and C throughout the year. We just phased it back in then, so for A and B we housed them in the shed and left the cow then with the option to come out for C then for the 2 a.m. turnout. Worked very well, I must say, the last couple of weeks. Cows that wanted to go out and graze went out and grazed. Cows that wanted to stay in and have silage and stay and lie down in the cubicles, they done so. So overall I must say we're doing very little damage to the paddock and the roadways, as one cow is travelling one per time. They're not all coming together. It's definitely sparing our roadways too at the minute, yeah.
Okay, and I suppose one thing people find it hard to get their heads around with robotic milking is the cow movement and leaving the cows to themselves. How do you find that? How do you find it works, getting the cows up and going on the platform? How did that work for you in relation to trusting the cows to do their own thing?
Yeah, I suppose trust is a big thing, and leaving the option up to the cow, I suppose, is definitely where it comes to try and take on too much yourself and try and get too much kind of into it. If you take a step back and let the cow kind of manoeuvre her way through A, B and C, because once it clicks with them when they come in from the paddock that they're going to get milked and get their meal, and it clicks with them when they hit the graze way again that they're going to get out to fresh grass, definitely it takes going from there.
And you find the cows, they tune themselves into it?
Yeah, they did. Because the spring that went by was very wet, we started with just A out, and we were able to easily we were able to ease them out to the paddocks then gradually. So by doing that, it worked a dream, to be honest. Cows got in on the whole routine for A, then we adjusted into B and then adjusted into C. And yeah, definitely, as the times rolled on, then the cow got familiar with the times then for each turnout, and I just left it up to them after that.
And I suppose coming from the beef side of things and managing grass, how did you find walking the farm, managing the grass? I suppose one thing with robotic milking is the wire is always left open, so if it's not right in front of her, she will come back in, or at least there's the option to come back in. How did you find working that? Were you doing many walks? Was there much bales taken out? How did you work it for?
Yeah,
the year?
we're lowly stocked here now on year one, I suppose, and it was a great challenge to try and keep in control of the grass. Keeping the grass right is definitely key to the whole system. Keeping the grass right in front of the cow and having the cow leaving the paddock in the right condition, I found was very important too, in terms of when you're coming back in 3 weeks' time, getting back in on good grass. Big step up from grazing in the beef, grazing in the beef days. It's definitely trying to keep on top of the wave of grass when the burst does come by taking out surplus bales, getting in with the topper and topping out any grass that is left behind and some of the heavier covers.
And how did you work it? Were you doing weekly walks? What way were you working in that regard to keep an eye on what was coming in front?
Yeah, definitely. We earlier on in the year we started with pasture base and working with a plate meter, measuring grass and trying our best to keep on top of it like that. Like that was all a learning curve, was all new to me. Made mistakes earlier on in the grazing, still make mistakes here today. But one thing I learned throughout the grazing system is it is easy if you make a mistake in A and the cows do come in, or it is very easy to counteract that, and you'll get it right in B and C then afterwards.
How did you find getting the cows up and running on that, as regards what times were they let out to grass first thing, and how did you get the cows flowing throughout the 24 hours of the day to actually trust the system like we touched on earlier on?
Yeah, I suppose the 2 a.m. movement is a very important movement. We started here first with C. When they were first let out to grass, they started moving at 2 a.m. just to encourage them to start moving at night and getting them into the routine of moving at night. So once the cow had that grasped at moving at 2 a.m, definitely from there, when she came back in, got milked, and the message came clear that she was going back to new grass, then she'd flow through A, B and C, no problem.
Had you any problems adjusting to that, or was there any stumbling blocks you found with the grazing side of things and getting it to work, from trusting the grazeway to the divisions, etc., etc.? Was there any real stumbling blocks for you?
Yeah, there probably was. There's good days and bad days. You will make mistakes with the proportion of the cover that you're given and with the block you're aligning to them in A, B and C. You will have good days and bad days. There is big variations from paddock to paddock, but once I got in on the allocation that was good to keep the cows moving, it worked fairly well then after that, yeah.
And as regards the actual platform itself here, we touched that we try to set it up as flexible as possible. Had you much interchanging to do to keep the cows flowing right? And because did you find much that, say, you had an awful lot of grass at one end of the platform and trying to manage that, or were you able to balance it out over the year?
Yeah, it was tricky enough because you're kind of trying to zone in that you're kind of grazing. You're grazing one paddock a day in 3 different sections of the farm. So keeping your rotation right in A, in B and C can be tricky. But back in May, when we were tight for grass here, we swapped the C with the B, and we introduced silage then here in our C block. And there is that bit of flexibility with the grazing system. It does allow you to do that. So it was definitely a big plus.
Just talk us through a small bit what happened actually on farm here come the 1st of February.
Yeah, we started here, I think, the 25th of January, first cow calved. Definitely a big plus having them trained up to the machine before they calve was definitely a big work. It was definitely a big saver. When the cow calved, she knew that when she entered the robot she was going to get meal, and it definitely took a bit of work out of it.
Okay, and then I suppose jumping forward, the first 4 or 5 cows calve, the system starts, the robot's up and going. How did you find adapting to that, getting used to everything, getting the cows trained? Anything you'd learn going forward from it?
Yeah, look, it's a massive learning curve overall for both myself and the cow, I suppose. We had 4 or 5 cows calved at the stage, then we introduced them to grass, and just getting them zoned in and getting the cow tuned in with the whole system. Overall, definitely the cows took to it a lot better than I thought. It wasn't as hard of an adaptation for them to adapt to the grazing and to the milking as I first initially thought.
And as regards external help, did you seek much? Had you to seek much help from your dad or from brothers, from sisters? How did that work?
Yeah, I'm very lucky. I have a very supportive family, and I suppose definitely it is it's very important for any new entrants out there who are starting out in the next couple of years. Sport is definitely something that's very important. Here in the spring I had my father and my brother and the rest of my family, they all zoned in here and helped me out throughout the year, yeah, definitely. Yeah, once you get 1 or 2 cows kind of just travelling themselves to the robot and travelling to the grazeway and getting familiar with it, they will definitely lead the rest. Putting in a big effort into the first 4 or 5 cows that do calve and getting them in and getting them familiar with the whole system is definitely a big saver.
Andrew, so you have a job off farm, you're employed off farm. How did you transition back to that in the middle of the summer? You took a small bit of time off to get up and going. Do you want to just talk through how that worked and what your plan was?
Yeah, just very lucky, I suppose. I've had a flexible enough job to be able to give me the opportunity to take February, March and April off. So after them 3 months, I was returned to work then in May. Things were just beginning to settle down, I suppose. We were just off the rush of spring and just starting into the rush of breeding. And definitely the transition back to work went a lot smoother than I thought. You'll be kind of inclined to hang around and look at the system, and you're kind of monitoring the cows here when you're here, just knowing where they are, what's going on, and just having the trust with the system to go away and leave it from 9 to 5, I suppose, during the day. From your phone you can see what cow is milking, where she is and what she's kind of up to. You have 24/7 monitoring of their rumination and of their activity. Heat probability also is linked up to the phone, so any cows that are bulling, for any cows that might be sick or might flash up in the health report, you'll see all that from your work desk or whatever you're working, wherever your base is.
How did you manage as regards a sick cow, say a mastitis cow?
Yeah, mastitis cow, say if I went down now in the morning and I was going down and change the filter before I went to work, you'd have a look at your health report and you'd see if there's any cows with mastitis. So then when I'd go to work, if she had already gone out and gone through the system and was in the field, I'd route her to the shed, or I'd route her to back to A or B. So when I come home from work, then she'd be there in the paddock or she'd be there in the shed, and I'd have a look at her and see what's happening.
It's probably one thing that is such a benefit with the robots. We have obviously our daily milk record, and we have, as you said, heat detection, rumination. How did you find using all that data and making your decisions, or did you get much help in trying to interpret it?
Yeah, well, I love all that. The more information I can get my hands on, the better. Monitoring the cows on a daily basis and just having all that information available to me is something I love. But having Philip, and he came out, walked the farm here once every month, once every 5-6 weeks, and just to keep on top of the grass. And it was there for Lely are there for advice on kind of the best practice on kind of dealing with that information, because it is one thing having all this information at our fingertips, but actually using that information is a different story. And having that advice there on the other side of the phone and putting this information to good use is definitely important, yeah. Before
Andrew would have started up here, we would have had discussion group meetings and meetings in Mullingar about this time last year, just before Christmas. The objective of that was to knock the corners off the robot. So really taking away the surprise come the spring, getting Andrew used to the basics of the robot, the basic robot routines, the basics of the computer, how to set up your cows, so talking about your clipping and your singeing, and basically what we needed Andrew to have done to get ready for spring 2020. Yeah, the experience of that training course before the robot was very good. It was good to meet other farmers in the same situation, and was good to bounce information off one another, I suppose, and just to have a bit of confidence then when it came to putting the collars on the cows, something simple, having the confidence to go and do it and match the tags up with the computer and getting them up, just having the confidence and knowing the simple things, because it is very simple. Once you do the simple things right in this system, it works very well. So we're here just talking to Andrew's father, Seamus, who was heavily involved with Andrew and helping him out, as Andrew's outlined, throughout the spring and over the whole course of the project. Seamus, just touch a small bit on how you found the system and what you weren't expecting, and positives and negatives that you saw throughout the year with the system.
I'd be over here certain days spreading fertiliser and that, and I couldn't believe cows could actually be trained to walk in and out, from what I used to know years ago with the cows on the paddock system. And to see cows walking in and out at their own pace, and definitely the graze way, to have that gate automatic and turning every 8 hours. And once when I seen the cows getting used to that 8 hours and going out to the fresh grass and back in and moping in and out, and the silence of all around the yard, I just couldn't get over it.
You were employed with Dove, so you would manage the breeding here, and as regards bull selection and managing the breeding season. How did you find the breeding? What way did you work it? Because look, Andrew had the data available on the computer and was feeding it back to you. Just maybe talk us through your success with it.
The herd started off with, as Andrew said earlier, a British Friesian Holstein cross cow, 60-40, 70-30 type. So we started the breeding around the last week of April, just about 4 or 5 days before the 1st of May. I was eager to start a few days early to see how we'd go with this 6 semen.
How did you find, as regards trusting the system? Like, the collars are obviously a big part of it. They're giving your heat detection rumination.
This is all new to us as well, and we were picking up these cows, and I'd noticed cows, like there'd be no marks on the cows, there was no signs of heat, they looked like silent heats. The robot seemed to be picking up this, so we'd go and AI them. And the next thing we were finding after the 3 weeks here was cows, no repeats. So after about 6 weeks, you know, say you'll always have a cow that mightn't repeat after 3, but she'll come at 6. There was still no repeats. And I was getting quite a bit nervous. So we AI'd all along, and the robot, I was getting the information, we were AIing accordingly. And so at 12 weeks we decided we'll go in with an early scan, just in case you'd be just afraid that there would be cows that wouldn't be in calf. So we did with the early scan and couldn't believe it.
So just what exactly is your projected 6-week calving rate for next year, just to put an actual figure on it? How many cows are you looking, will be calving in the first 6 weeks?
The first 6 weeks there's 47 cows.
So that's the equivalent of just shy of 80%, just shy of 80% 6-week calving.
We AI'd when the robot said to AI, more or less. When the cow was on, we AI'd, even though I hadn't seen no sign of that animal bulling. So there was definitely silent heats there that we were picking up with the robot.
So Seamus, with your job off farm, you visit a lot of farms throughout the country. You're seeing guys tail paint, very labour intensive methods of heat detection. Were you surprised at the level of success you had here based on
very
the data
surprised.
from the robot?
I couldn't believe it, because, like, as I said, I'm working, Andrew was working, and I was actually worried starting out in the beginning of the breeding, because, like, you know, to get the breeding right is major. Compact your calving, and to not having to tail paint and pick up what you could, and the robot picking them up, we found it a fierce help, because we just go and AI. Yeah, we were delighted with it.
Seamus, you would have known the history of this farm. You've seen dairy down through the years. You've seen a lot in relation to different systems and what's working. How did you actually find the start of this system here and getting it up and running in the spring?
Yeah, I found it strange for a while. I did now, till it gets going. And now Andrew put in a lot of, he stuck with it the whole time. And but once we got the first, as he said earlier, the 4 or 5 cows going and them trained and going, it followed on. And definitely, as you go on into it then and get into a routine with the cows, you know, get into the routine of the clipping and getting them through it and getting them trained in 2 or 3 times, getting them, definitely then it all starts coming into play. To come down, to get out of the car in the yard and listen to the robot and the cow, and I don't know in other farms, but we seem to have the heifers, there's always some of them around the robot. It's very seldom during the day that there's heifers not at the robot. They're walking in and out all the time, and like it's lovely to see how relaxed they are. And like, after a couple of months, I couldn't believe, you'd come out in the yard and you look down and here they were, one after another, going into the robot. I just couldn't believe it. Yeah, like it was going so smooth. And like it's lovely to just to look down, and it's therapy dearly in itself to look down and see the heifers going through it.
How did you find it in relation to breakdowns or the system failing on an individual day? Or talk us through how you worked with that.
Yeah, I suppose, Philip, sure, it's like any machine, you're going to have problems. We're very lucky here this year. We ran into very few problems overall. And there is days and there is nights there that, you know, you will have things that do go wrong. Lely have a 24-hour line there. You can call it any time of the day or night. Just having someone there on the other side of the phone is very important. You know, just talk you through how to do these things, because 99.9% of the problems we had here were solved over the phone, and it was very simple and very easy. Look, it's been full of challenges throughout the last 12 months, I suppose, overall, trying to get set up and going. But we've made loads of mistakes here throughout the year, and we try to learn from them and improve. And we're going to take a lot of what we learned this year into next year and kind of improve on year out. So just for anyone out there who is considering getting into dairying and maybe starting in this spring coming, just take one or two small things from this open day, and hopefully we've answered any questions that they might have had going on.
So there we are, folks. We just come to the end of our first virtual open day. Hope you really enjoy it. Special thanks to Andrew and Seamus Browne for allowing us to come on their farm, giving up their time, gave us tremendous feedback. If you would like to learn more, you can tune in to the question and answer session that's coming up next. We'll be able to put all those questions that have been asked over the last 40 odd minutes to our project manager Seamus, to our farm management support person Philip, or to Andrew himself. And if you'd like to speak to us one-on-one, just contact the team in Lely St. Mullingar, and we'd love the opportunity to visit your farm and see if it's suitable. So thank you very much.
Hello, Andrew.
How's it going, Niall?
Good. How's all in Tip?
Yeah, we're flying it. Can't complain.
Excellent. We got Seamus and Mayo.
Yeah.
And we've got Sean in Mullingar, and I'm Niall McGorn. So that was very interesting, Andrew. We've a hell of a lot of questions, so we're going to crack on and get straight through them.
Mm-hmm.
First one is for you, Sean. How far will cows travel to the robot? You think you're muted, Sean?
Yeah, I'm on mute there, sorry. Yeah, look, at distance cows will walk to the road from and to the robots. Look, depending on what way you set up the farm, but we have farms running upwards of 2 kilometres. Plenty of farms doing more than 1.5 kilometres. And certainly see with the right road network and the right road structure, you know, there's no reason why you couldn't get cows to walk up beyond the 2 kilometre limit. Obviously there's criteria to be met there, but there is farms currently walking 2 kilometres plus and still achieving 2 milkings a day plus.
And of course you as part of your job would be visiting farms and checking to see how suitable they are. So sometimes you have to be on the farm actually to see the lie of the land before you can make that decision. Question for you, Andrew.
Yep.
What was the hardest part of the startup experience?
The hardest part of the startup experience for me is probably training up the heifers to the robot. You just really have to grind into it for the first couple of days and kind of get through it. But yeah, some heifers walked into it and they took it from the first milking and they went on. Other heifers then could have took up to maybe 5-6 days. But of all the heifers that we started with, none of them failed. They all started up successfully on the robot. So that was my hardest experience, I suppose, now.
Excellent. Another question, Andrew, this is from James. How long do you spend in the yard morning and evening?
It varies. It does vary. I suppose on average, a half an hour in the morning, 45 minutes, depends on the paddock, depends on the distance you have to walk, set up your strip wire. I'd say about half an hour, and then it's very simple. Then in the evenings, you're just setting up your C wire. In the morning, you're setting up A and B, and in the evening, then you're changing your C wire and change your filter morning and evening as well. So once you're organised, this was half an hour in the morning, 15 minutes then in the evening will do you.
Excellent. And another question from James. He's obviously latched on to the fact that you work full time as well, as does your dad. What happens if something goes wrong when you're at work? It's a good question, in fairness.
Yeah, look at we're very lucky. I think there was one day the robot ring me. So if there is a problem, the robot will ring you. One day the robot rang me, and I was fortunate enough that I was on my way home. I was only 15 minutes away from the farm. With the job, I'm never extremely far away. I'd say maybe 45 minutes to an hour at the max. So.
Okay, thanks for that. A question for you, Seamus. How many times did the project coordinator visit the site over the course of the build?
I suppose if you're talking about Andrew's job here, because there was no feed space or cubicles needed in a new build area, we'd say that it was a small build. So I'd be thinking it was probably 7 or 8 times for Andrew there.
Okay. And typically what meeting tradesmen, meeting builders, meeting guys working on site?
Meeting tradesmen, really interpreting the drawings, going through with Andrew the next step on, and just making sure that, you know, what they have done to date is incorrectly, and then that they understand the next step. So you can overload people as well with too much information. So it's just ensuring that they understand what they have to do for maybe the next week or in advance of the next contractor coming in, and then just dealing with that. Of course, I'm available on the phone then at all times. So.
And of course, Seamus, you come from a construction background, so you have good old bank of knowledge to pull from. Another question for you, Seamus. What are the most, and this is from Michael, what are the most common mistakes farmers make when they are doing a project?
I suppose one of the most common mistakes would be underestimating the time it takes to do a project. Really, a lot of factors come into play, and the biggest one is the program. So it's lining up your contractors and ensuring that one follows on from the other, because there can be delays with them running late on other jobs, which means that they're late getting to you. Then materials can be a problem. And of course, weather, you know, wind, rain, they can have huge effects on digging tanks in the ground or trying to stand a shed or sheet a shed. So that's a big one. Another one is just understanding ESB. If you're needing to get in a power upgrade, that your electrical contractor, that he needs to have his work done because he needs to submit that electrical certificate. And the building could be ready, the robot could be fitted, and then you're just waiting on power. And yeah, that's a big one, really.
Okay. Another question, Seamus, this is from Oliver for you. Andrew's build is very open. Will there be problems in very cold weather? Fair question.
I suppose Andrew's build is open. Now, I wouldn't say the robot room is open. I'd say for Andrew, his issue would be his water, and his water up above the robots. In some situations, that would be down below, and it would be in a plant room. In Andrew's situation, he has it up above the robots, and it's left open. So what Andrew could do there is that he just needs to make sure that he can lag all his water getting to the robots, or the supply to the robots, because the robot room itself, that's a relatively small room. So we have people in extreme cold weather temperatures, they can put space heaters or electric bar heaters into the room, and it doesn't take much to increase the temperature. Like, I honestly can't remember any robot that has ever failed to milk in a cold weather situation.
Yeah, well, I'm at it 8 years. We're servicing the guts of 400 robots, so touch wood, we've never had a situation where we couldn't milk cows. We have had situations where there was no robots going to there was no water going to the robots, and all that meant was the robots couldn't wash, but you could still milk the cows. So it wasn't it wasn't a critical issue.
Like at Andrew's as well, if Andrew had used maybe concrete slabs for a ceiling, then he could have placed all his water tanks over in one area, possibly above his dairy, and he could have partitioned that area out and closed it in. But just he was concerned with the weight of water tanks, and he placed them, I suppose that the weight was going to transfer down through the walls, so he spanned them across the corridors and different reasons like that.
A question from Justin, Seamus, when I have you, I'll come back to the lads then. How long does it usually take for the whole process between planning and first cow?
I would say that
First cow being milked, I'm assuming Justin means.
Again, like how long is a piece of string? If it's a greenfield site, you know, we would have people that for a spring calf and herd, they'd be starting probably the previous April, May, digging tanks and getting tanks in the ground. If it's a retrofit, then I know there's been some jobs that might have been in old parlour situations, and they could have the job done, building work and robot fitted in 4 weeks. So yeah, it's down to the size of the project, but I couldn't underestimate getting started in advance, or at least getting a slatted tank in the ground and you know, one element of the job done.
A question for you, Andrew. This is from James. Did you price a parlour, or did you James is inquiring, did you look into a parlour, or was the robot the only option you considered?
No, we were going milking parlour, I suppose, initially. We had an old 6-unit milking parlour here on farm. Wasn't going to work. There was going to be too much money invested, I suppose, into it for the return and for the goal we had, our vision we had to bring this farm. So we working with Teagasc at that time, and kind of throughout the whole process we priced up kind of a greenfield site, and then we got Niall out and we went through the pricing to compare with the dairy and the parlour, and there wasn't a whole pile in the difference, to be honest, and we obviously then finished up going with the robot, but yeah, we did price parlours at the start of it, yeah.
But in your instance, there wasn't a huge amount in the difference between going one way or the other?
I wouldn't put a figure on it as such, Niall. There wasn't too much in the difference.
Wasn't too much. No, that's fair enough. A question for you. Someone's trying to come into my office there, so that's why I put my question for you, Sean. Is there ever a situation where the cows won't travel properly?
Yes, there is situations like that. Most of the time, it's down to grass, how grass is allocated, and you know, Andrew would have said it there during the open day. Like, if you can make mistakes, you can over allocate and under allocate. If we under allocate grass, cows land back in a little bit early. If we over allocate, they tend to stay a little bit later. But we can adjust for that then in the next block. You know, if they're too slow coming from A, we can tighten them up a little bit in B and try and fix that within 24 hours. So there is a balancing method there. I suppose for more severe problems, a lot of the time, the biggest problems we find with cows not doing what they're supposed to is coming down to the training they got. I suppose really leading on to one of the questions Seamus had earlier on about, you know, what are the biggest problems our farmers tend to run into, and it's time management. You know, taking on with all of the jobs in terms of getting set up over the back end, but a lot of farmers forget that there's still a farm to run outside of all of these jobs. Never mind get these jobs done before anybody lands in on top of you to talk about this or that. You know, so you can lose an awful lot of time there and not get your roaders in on time, not get your fencing done. You know, all those little things then put added pressure on in the spring to try and, which does cause a bit of issues in terms of movement. Look, there's no problems that can't be resolved, but it generally does take one of the FMS team here to go out, visit the farm. Maybe a couple of times you heard Andrew saying he had a visit every 4 to 6 weeks, really, from Philip. You know, keeping an eye on things, making sure everything's going okay. So there is issues, but generally all fixable, and more often than not caused by 2 legs on the ground, not the 4.
Very good, very good. A question from John from Offaly for you, Andrew. In the spring, how many hours in the morning if there are cows calving and a few to be trained?
How many hours would you spend in the morning, Niall?
I guess John is the question. I'm guessing what he's saying is, when you're spring calving, and you're calving cows and there's cows to be trained. I'm guessing you were on the farm full time.
I was, yeah, definitely, yeah. It all
Cows were
depends.
calving.
Our busiest day here in the spring, we had 13 calves within 24 hours. So you have days and mornings like that are just completely hectic. You know, the morning turns into the day, and you just kind of get to it. But I couldn't put a time limit on it for the spring. Spring is just spring, you get on and you kind of deal with it. Took me, I suppose, by surprise. It was my first spring here, and becoming a dairy farmer. So yeah, no, it's like Seamus said, how long is a piece of string? You have some mornings will go your way and some mornings won't. The workload varies most mornings during the spring. So, but routine, I suppose, getting in the cows that calve, getting them in on the robot, and getting them comfortable and getting them milked, then worrying about the calves then and getting the calves sorted was kind of our routine. And then looking after the rest of her, then getting the cubicles scraped, getting the silage in front of the cows, and then taking on the rest of the day then whatever the day brought.
I might have to talk to you about an automatic calf feeder another day.
Niall, just if I can say,
that might help.
Niall, just there with Andrew and the time that's spent with calf cows, that's something that we'd be very conscious of when we're designing our shed, in that it's very easy to get that first milked cow from her calving area to the robot. So, you know, we would say that that's a huge part of things, and making it very easy for that to happen, that she wouldn't have to go across, you know, a big distance across a yard or that she'd have to walk down through, you know, a main herd of cows. So in Andrew's situation, they were off in a straw bedded area, but they could get access with a short walk down through that scrape passage that we mentioned earlier on and into the robot, and then separate it back out. And you know, that helps with time in the morning and not needing anybody else, just a one-man job or one-woman job.
It's the small things that make a big difference there, Niall.
And I suppose just touching back on what Andrew said, like Andrew, you trained up all those heifers on that robot beforehand as well. You put them through in a training period. Like, obviously you found that a bit of a help in terms of getting cows into the robot.
Yeah, definitely. Once I turned that cow out with a calving pen, there was no such thing as trying to turn her into the robot. She walked into the robot herself, and definitely took that extra bit of stress and workload over trying getting the actual cow into the robot, because that's going to be a shock for her just after calving too. So taking that shock away from it as well will definitely improve it for both myself and the cow, you know.
A question for you, Andrew, from Francis. Is there anything you would have done different in the planning and implementing this project?
We thought we started very early, but the year just kind of ran away, and you can't have enough time and planning. One thing I will say to any new entrants that are maybe starting next year, the year after, is definitely if they think, we're going to start planning next year, I don't think you could start early enough, to be honest. And definitely get the ball rolling, even at something small as starting your roadways early next year, just getting them in and getting them ready to go.
That's fine. Another question from James from Laois. How much free time does his robot have, and how many cows does he think one robot will milk for him?
Is that for me, Niall?
For you, Andrew, yeah. You or Sean, whoever's...
Sean can come in that there as well, but at the minute, I think my robot's running at 49% free time, as the cows are slacking back now. In the spring is a different story, all right. We had 61 on it, like we said, in the open day this year. we're gonna push it to 71 this spring coming, and we'll see how it goes from there. We hope to put between 75 is our goal onto the robot, and then see from there. What will be your experience, Sean?
Yeah, look, we typically say in a grazing scenario, like year one, don't budget any more than 70 cows. There's an awful lot of variables in that system in terms to get to 70 on. 70 is a reasonably comfortable number on the robot, especially in year one. It just gives you a chance to learn the system, gives the cows a chance to learn the system. You know, everybody's coming in a little bit green, so there's going to be a few errors made. Obviously, we're there to try and, I suppose, streamline that process as much as possible, but at the end of the day, we're not there day in, day out to see it through, so there's always going to be a bit of a hiccup. There is farms running upwards 75 cows plus. It really boils down to two or three things really. You have the milk speed of the cow flow during the day, and then the grassland management. If one of those things is below standard, you're going to limit the amount of cows you can put through that robot. You know, if you have good cow flow with a good milk speed, you should be able to put a lot of cows through. But yeah, look at it is a year or two's time before you get brought up into 75, 80 cows. There is some farms that are running it. I think our highest output farm, Niall, you may correct me on the numbers, was about 184 cows on 2 robots, 2 Lely Astronaut.
A man from Lockmore, so not a million miles away from you, Andrew, but I wouldn't recommend that though.
No, look, it's definitely not recommended, not off the bat. But look, that's what we're there for. We're there to work with the farmer, try and find the best medium. You know, obviously we want to maximise the cow as much as possible, want to maximise the robots then as well. So it's not always throw cows at it until it can take no more. You know, maybe step down a couple of cows back and you get a little bit extra out of the cows you have, your tank shouldn't really drop and your overall system's under less pressure. So should leave a little bit more of a profitable system.
Okay, we'll keep going through these. Question, do the robots need 3-phase power? That's from Justin. I'll answer that one. No, Justin, you don't need 3-phase power. We farmed up to 4 robots on single phase. So when Seamus and his team is on farm, that's one of the things they'll be looking at and considering. You may need an upgrade of your single phase, but you don't need 3-phase unless you're looking to buy more than 4 robots or install more than 4 robots on the one site. A question for you, Sean. Does the farmyard need to be in the middle of the grazing block?
No, definitely not. By and large, I'd say there's very, very few of the farms we're dealing with that are working very well, like, you know, that have not got their farms in the middle of a grazing block. Obviously, getting up into very large systems, it can help just with minimising walks, but your everyday run-of-the-mill farm, no, the farm can be right stuck in the corner of it, and we can develop it up after that. Look, it does obviously take a bit of a farm walk around, check it out before you can say it's definitely going to work on a certain farm. But there's very few farms that we've walked onto so far that we have said it won't work on, and it hasn't worked on.
A question from Liam. I'll probably try and answer this one. Will you help with costing for a business plan? We spend a lot of time with stuff like that, Liam. Like Seamus and his team would visit site, obviously trying to get a feeling for what construction drawings are required. But prior to that, one of our 2-yard designers, Simon Moore or William Condon, would have looked at the concept, the big picture. So with the level of experience we have, like we're almost looking after 400 robots, we would have a good feel for what the project should cost. And Sean and his farm management support team would have a very good knowledge of what it's going to cost to put on roadways, drinkers and fences. And obviously we know the price of the robots. So we can give all the information that is required to put a business plan together. But you know, I'd also recommend speak to your local Teagasc advisor and your accountant. So when you do visit the bank, you know, you've good confidence in your figures. And our experience is, as long as you can demonstrate the repayment capacity and the business plan makes sense, they're generally very positive. Hopefully that answers that. What about alarm calls? It's a question from Seamus. Hey Seamus, do you get many of them, and have you had to get up many nights with problems? Andrew?
Yeah, there was nights at the start. There was teething problems at the start, like most machines, Niall. Yeah, there was a couple of nights at the start where the robot rang me all right. From my head, I can't think of any major problem in particular that would have rang me about, but yeah, definitely it did ring me a couple of times on some occasions during the night, yeah.
Say average now, from now, the last 6 months, how would it have been like now that you're getting settled into it?
In the last 6 months, I actually had to check the robot to see was there credit in it there about a week ago, because I didn't hear or it didn't ring me in so long, so that'll just tell you.
Okay, so
I didn't know. I haven't got a phone call from the robot now, touch wood, in a good while.
a question from Porrick: how do you deal with colostrum milk? I might take that one, Andrew. It's the robot has separation buckets, Porrick. So when a freshly calved cow goes into the robot, that milk is automatically separated into one of 4 buckets. You can add anything, Andrew. I don't know what system you do, how long you feed milk for, what do you do? You might add in a little bit there.
Yeah, for the first week to 10 days, we're whole milk. The cows are on whole milk, and as much colostrum as we can get into them for the first 24 to 48 hours. The buckets are very handy. We've used them all right through the system, and we use them for mixing the milk replacer in as well. They're just very handy, and just having the colostrum and any of the antibiotic milk on the wall there ready to go and reuse is another plus. All right, yeah.
A question for you, Seamus. Do you have a list of recommended builders that have experience with this type of work?
The answer would be yes, yeah. I suppose, look, as I mentioned at the start of the video, I've been in the job now up in 6 years, so we've robots in every county, and yeah, we would have worked with people in every county. You know, sometimes you go to a farm and the farmer would have experienced themselves with builders, and they would have done work on the farm previously. So it's not a concern of mine if the farmer gets a contractor that we haven't worked with before, because we just developed the drawings now that they're very good, and then we've an excellent catalogue of photographs too, so that helps. Plus, if there was a builder that was very unsure of something, then there's always a farm that's, you know, not too far away in a car or a van to travel to. But there is builders that we have worked with in the past and that I've worked with multiple times, and I suppose the benefit of it for me is the peace of mind that I know they've done it right before, so they're going to do it right again. As well, it does put the customer's mind at ease, because, you know, you want to do things right first time. And I suppose if a builder has worked in a robot room or worked in that area in the past, it just gives peace of mind to a farmer. So anything that puts the farmer's mind at ease, then yes. So we would have I'd have a good list of numbers for concrete men, for electricians, for plumbers, and they're the big trades. Really, shed men are that, you know, they don't have to be local, because once they're working from a set of drawings, it's the detail is in the concrete and maybe pricing up for electrician or plumbing works. So yeah.
Very good. Question for you, Andrew. How far do you live from your farm?
I'm very lucky here. I'm living on farm. Yeah, so no, it's not essential, but it's very handy. All right.
A question, Sean, is how do you decide between AB and ABC for a particular farm?
It's fairly straightforward now. It's really only ABC that we're doing. I suppose last couple of years we've been watching and monitoring different farms, see what was working, what wasn't. You know, since you started up the business in 2012 or 2011. You know, so there's about 8 years there of robotic experience. Really have done a lot of trial and error work. So there's a couple of early guys that have done that for us, and we tried different things. And basically the ABC is coming out as a superior system. You know, we're getting 3 fresh breaks of grass in the day as opposed to only 2. So what's that doing is it's allowing those heifers that are hanging back a little bit more, maybe a little bit more timid and shy, to skip one block altogether and be the first cow out to the third block. So you're always guaranteed at least 2 fresh feeds for every cow in the day. And then as well as that, it's topping up your high yielders as well, because they're going to get 3 fresh feeds of grass every day, which will help with fertility and milk production. So look, there is challenges in terms of setting it up on farms. More often than not, it's just a small spur road off one side or the other in order to link it up. But that really does take a farm visit to kind of look at it and see the lay of the land.
A question from Jim that I'll try and answer. Is it possible to get a second-hand robot? Yes, Jim, it is a possibility to get a second-hand robot. Most people are going new because there's a very good TAMS grant. I won't ask Andrew what he got, but everyone gets at least 32,000. If you're in a partnership, it could be, you know, it could be 80,000. It could be up to 96,000. So if anyone, you know, wants to find out tomorrow, give us a call. I'll talk them through the details. But when you're taking the grant into account, you know, you're not really making a saving by putting in a second hand. Obviously, you won't get the grant on a second hand. So, you know, but they are people who will be interested in second hand, and we have a couple of people that we can get them from that we can stand over. We know they've been properly serviced and properly maintained and properly looked after. Okay, another question coming in here. Can the robot work with cows coming from multiple existing sheds in yard, or is a new shed with the robot the right way to go? Brendan, you want that, Sean or Seamus? Did you hear the question? Yeah.
Like if you're running several different sheds, it is very doable. You know, obviously Seamus, Willie, Simon or Mark has to call out and take a look at that, just the actual structure in the yard. But we have several farms running it. You know, we've one over in Mayo, just for example, that has 2 sheds and the robot are in a 3rd shed. And he actually has the cows separated in an autumn calving group or the high group in one side, and the spring calf cows on the other side, or the low yielding cows, especially at this time of the year. Just using the robots to draft those cows out, allowing them to feed those cows a little bit differently. But yeah, no, like long and short, yeah, there's an awful lot of farms that are running multiple sheds tying into the robots, so you don't have to go building greenfield site, you know, just to put in a robot. There is very functional systems out there without going greenfield. So Seamus, if you hadn't had on that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Obviously, look, when you visit farm as a planner, you're looking to see, and we would follow fundamentals, and one of them would be that you'll have a clean side of the yard and a dirty side of the yard. So clean side of the yard, we mean that it's clean and there's no, I suppose, interference for your milk tank coming into the yard or for your meal bin. Then a dirty side of the yard is where the cows and where the robots are positioned. So we try to position the robots very accessible to the grazing platform. So we can pump milk, you know, 50 meters, 60 meters, 70 meters. So the distance from the robots to a milk tank is not really an issue for us. And then tying into existing cubicles and existing feed space, no, there's always an opportunity to tie that in. Of course, like Andrew did show in the video, a waiting area or a slatted area in front of the robots, you know, we feel that's very important. If you can avoid having cows coming back in from grazing and walking down through an existing shed, then, you know, that's really what you want to try and achieve.
That's fine. I'm just going to take 3 last questions, lads, because we've been on a good while. Can we look a question here from Sean? Can we look after a TAMS grant application? Yeah, Sean, we can. We have some very good farm advisors we work with and we can recommend. So yeah, we can get involved and help you on that. There was another question there from John. How far from the robot can the milk tank be? So what's that, Seamus? Up to 100 meters, I think. From
yeah, we have farms up to 100 meters that, you know, have absolutely no issues at all.
Another question from Luke. What finance options are available? So Luke, you can, at the moment, what's very popular is this SBCI fund. You may or may not be aware of. It's unsecured fund. It's a lower interest rate. If you speak to your bank, he or she should be able to make you aware of it. A discounted interest rate. That seems to be the most popular scheme that people are tapping into at the moment. Others just go with a standard 10 or 15, up to 10 or 15 year term loan with their bank. Some may only put it over 5. The odd person writes a check. The higher purchase option can be a popular option too, for people who don't have a TAMS grant to draw down. So a lot of people, second or third robots, might put it on a higher purchase option, which means that the only security on the loan is the robot itself. And we generally have an answer on that relatively quickly. So that is a popular option. The great majority of people are going with a TAMS grant. Scheme is still there, thank God. You know, it'd be hugely helpful to our business and hugely helpful for people upgrading their milking system or new entrants. There was a question here about the split between our business, between new entrants and existing dairy farmers. Obviously, this evening is about Andrew, who's a new entrant, but the majority of our customers would be coming from parlours. There would be existing dairy farms. But tonight the focus was on Andrew's situation. A question come in from John. If I applied for a grant for a parlour and got approved, can I? Sugar, it's after going off my screen. Hold on. This is definitely the last question. I think what the question was, if yeah, here it is. If I applied for a grant for a parlour and I got approved, can I also apply for robot grant now in the last tranche? If you've been approved, John, as far as I'm aware, you may have to withdraw that application and resubmit a new application for the robot. I think you probably could have changed your application if you hadn't been approved, but if you had been approved, just get your advisor to withdraw that application if you now want to put it in for a robot. Because you have time. There's a tranche closing at the end of this week, and then there's another tranche closing in the middle of January, so you have plenty of time to get that done if that's what you want to do. Okay, this is definitely the last question. Can I get plans done for my yard and grazing block without making any commitment to purchase? And that's from Finian. Finian, look, we're happy to visit a farm and give a good idea as regards what's involved, ballpark figures of what it may cost to upgrade your yard or convert your yard. We prefer not to get into doing detailed plans unless you were kind of confident you wanted to go forward. So what I do a lot of people is visit the farm, give them a good indication of probably where the robots might go, ballpark what they may have to spend, look at the grazing block, and then what I'd be keen to do, and Andrew did this, in fairness to himself and Seamus, give you a list of farms who are similar. And I think you learn an awful lot from visiting those farms. When I gave Andrew the names and numbers of farms to visit, he was either going to come back more convinced it was the way to go or more convinced it wasn't the way to go. He'd have worked it out for himself. So thankfully, he decided robotic milking was the best road for him. So that's the way we kind of work. So we prefer not to get into detail because there's a fair bit of work, a lot of people involved. There's a team approach. But we would have no problem putting plenty of time and effort in to help you decide whether it's the way you want to go. I think we're going to leave it there, folks. I really appreciate
before you go, Niall.
Sorry, yeah, okay.
Just one of my sisters, she couldn't make it the day we were filming, and she's just preparing for the guards at the minute, so she was a big part of it as well. And she gave me a big hand calf rearing this year, so as long as she says coming to me, Niall, it's going to would be no calf.
Calf feeder needed.
Calf feeder Alana.
Well, look, fair play. Yeah, as you said, all the family give you a dig out, so it's great to see the support there. You're a lucky man. Genuinely, Thank you very much, Andrew. It's not everybody who's willing to open up their farm, talk through their experience, and answer all the questions, because you didn't have much of an idea what you were going to be asked. So really appreciate you giving us your time, and yourself and Seamus and the rest of the family. We really want to thank Philip Kennedy, your farm management support advisor, who's been working with you. He's done an excellent job as well, so really appreciate that. Thanks very much. And thanks to my colleagues Seamus and Sean for their contributions. If anyone wants any more information, just contact the office here in Mullingar. We'd be delighted to talk to you, be delighted to give you any further details. Really appreciate you signing in with a huge crowd this evening, and looking at it, majority of people are still there. So thanks very much, and we're hoping to have maybe another event before the end of the year. So good night to everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Nice.